All right, guys. A lot to talk about today. I know Canes has been active. Canes, you're so famous in the Elite Sports Advising group chat that our Northeast guy, John Murphy, he texts us and is like, "Hey, I think your boys commented on Kendall Rogers' post, so you're famous, man." Um, Let me turn the music off because you guys don't like the music, I think. Okay, Canes. Quick question. Do you think their baseball coaches are happy that their AD is so public about the news? I don't think they care, and this is why, Canes. Let me fix this camera a little bit here. Um, the reason I don't think they care is because, like, if you think about it this way, there's going to be very few programs right now that are at 34 scholarships, right? It may be five, maybe 10 max for the next season. And so, like, does it really matter if teams know or not? Not really. From a competitive advantage standpoint, you also do want it out there so that players know, right? So if ASU is recruiting you and they're like, hey, we're thinking about making an offer, you know it's going to be a full ride. So that makes a kid way more likely to commit. So there you could look at it both ways, but me personally, event like I will say this, guys, schools are ramping up with the scholarships numbers a lot faster than expected. When those of us who knew this was coming, last summer, even into the spring, we figured there's almost going to be no teams at 34. Like the what most coaches are saying is even like the high level schools maybe going to like 25 or something, like you guys heard me say. But this is like it's really ramping up fast. Like this school going to 34, this school going to 34. Kent State going to like almost 20. Um, so again, it's just happening faster. It have been better to be like Clemson and when people ask you, you said, "Where did you get that from?" and they plead the fifth. Um, I, I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal, just to be honest. Because again, like there's going to be some schools that they'll never be able to get 34, and then maybe eventually across the Power Four, you're going to see a lot of schools closer to that number. But even in the Power Four, you're going to see a lot of schools not get close to 34 for a while. But like the more teams that do it, like every other AD, their coaching staff is going to be like, they're in our conference, they're at 34, they're in our conference, they're at 34, and we're sitting here at 18. They got double the scholarship money, right? They can double whatever offer we make. So, and again, because if you got 34 full rides, you don't have to worry about spreading money around. But even if you're upgrading to like 20, you still got to pick which guys you're going to give a full, which guys you're going to give a 25, which guys you're going to give a 50 or higher. So, like it's just I don't think it really matters. The one spreading the Clemson rumors at first is people like me because we got the info from our head coaches. Yes. It also makes sense why they're going to 34. The AD started his career as an intern for the baseball team, then went to the Diamondbacks for 15 years. He bleeds baseball. Yeah, 100%. And Kendall talks about that in the tweet about how like that was such a good AD hire for the Arizona State baseball team because you knew that guy was going to invest in baseball. In Arizona State, like it's a legacy. It's a legacy program in college baseball, and for years was one of, if not the best programs in the country. And just in recent years, with how things have changed, it's kind of not been what it typically is. And this is going to make them put them right back on the map, especially like if the advantage you gain of being a first mover in the sense of we're going to 34 is, man, like you can just offer every kid 100% scholarship. You're going to win way more recruiting matchups against other schools that are high level schools when you're the one given the 100%. So, like, look for the schools that are willing to invest in this early are going to see major returns. Because think about it like this: if you can offer every kid 100% and you're competing against most schools in your conference that may be able to go 50%, you got a huge advantage. And then maybe 5 years from now, there's way more schools at 34. Now that competitive advantage is gone because everyone can offer 100%. And so it's more of an even playing field. And then it becomes more so, is it a winning program? Are they going to develop you, facilities, everything like that? So massive advantage for the teams right now that are able to get close to 34, even get to 25. You're at a massive advantage over 90% of 95% of schools in Division One. If more schools are ramping up, it makes me think our number is currently too low. No, I think for now, Canes, like certainly for this coming year, you guys are in a good spot. It's like just from what the coaches I've talked to and the schools I've talked to. But certainly, like in a couple of years, you're probably going to need to be higher. Bleep, Clemson made it a big deal because they still have yet to confirm it. Yeah, and that's that's their prerogative, right? I mean, it's just the way they want to handle it. But I think that's a recruiting ploy on Arizona State's part, right? They want it out there because listen, Clemson is it's a top 5 program in the country right now. So like they don't need they're recruiting based off of their program, how they've done the last couple of years. Their facilities are insane. Obviously, it's a historic program as well. So Clemson doesn't need kids to know we can offer you 100% because they're already in the limelight, right? It's like at Tennessee. Like people are going there to play for Tony Vitello and Josh Elander and Frank Anderson, all those guys. They're not going there just because the scholarship's the best one, right? So at Arizona State, who's been a little bit, taking some lumps and bruises over the last decade, um, this is a way for them to really get ahead of the recruiting game and for recruits to know, especially in the West Coast, like we can offer you more money than anyone else. Um, like certainly on the West Coast. So it's a big advantage for them to get that word out. So would it be better for our good high school players to graduate early and play 2 years in JUCO before going to college? Potentially, Jose, but the thing is this, like most kids are not good enough to graduate early and go to JUCO. Again, JUCO rosters are really big. I think a lot of guys have it wrong that like, oh, if I'm going to go to JUCO, I'm going to play right away. It's like you still got to win a starting spot. Like they're still trying to win. They're trying to get to the JUCO, national championships and everything like that. So it's not a bad idea, but to me, you better be a really good player if you're going to graduate early and go. Because I've seen a lot of guys graduate early to get to a school and they play that year, but they don't play very well and then they get replaced. You're saying to skip your senior year of baseball, Jose. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Ugh. Yes, if you're good enough to skip junior and or senior year and play JUCO. I can tell you wholeheartedly there's almost no kid and there's the only kids good enough like I'll say this, the only kids really that should even be considering skipping a senior year of high school, certainly a junior year of high school, those are like draft level guys out of high school. So they're probably already committed to a Division One school and thinking about the draft. Um, so that's what I would say is like, dude, there's no one good enough. There's no high school player that's good enough to skip their junior year to enroll, and even senior year, you better be a really special player. Because like I said, I mean, there was a kid at Georgia Tech, catcher, who graduated early to enroll in January before the spring. He played pretty much the whole year, but he hit like 250 with not a lot of power, just kind of like nothing impressive about the year he had hitting, and he was decent behind the dish, but next year he's gone, right? So like maybe he should have stayed and not enrolled early. Talk to Whitting at Houston, and we won't be going to higher scholarship numbers. I'll have to get clarification on it if the school is actually paying for it. You know where that money scholarship is coming from. Yeah, that's the thing is, like most schools in Division One are not increasing their scholarship numbers at all yet. So that's again, most schools that are increasing scholarship numbers are the really good mid majors and the Power Four schools. Yeah, 15, 16-year-old JUCO. That's a recipe for disaster. That's like playing a 15, 16-year-old football player in JUCO. That's extreme. Better off going to prep schools who play colleges. Some of the best college baseball players are in JUCO. They just have grades or eligibility issues holding them back. Just because you go JUCO doesn't mean you're going to play. Yeah, and there's financial issues too, right? Like there's just some kids, in certain families that are like, I don't want to take out a massive student loan. Super smart idea. Like totally understand that. So there's a lot of guys like a lot of the really talented players go to JUCO, like you said, Zach, and good. Thanks for coming into the chat. Um, yeah, you're right. They may not have the grades. And you don't want, man, am I gonna be able to make it good enough grades to play like that? You don't want that hanging over you while you're trying to win a spot. And then too, I think the biggest reason a lot of the times is the financial reasoning. Whereas junior colleges can offer a lot of scholarships typically, especially like the D1 JUCOs and the good conferences, and it's just really cheap to go there. So you don't have to, you're not taking out a $200,000 student loan or a $300,000 student loan or even more at some of these schools. So it doesn't really make sense for guys to go. So I mean, there's a lot of great reasons to go JUCO, but you like you said, Zach, some of the best college baseball players are playing in junior college. So it's not like I think there is this idea amongst high schoolers. Let's say like a high school player, and I've worked with guys like this who are like probably a mid-major level player, a fringy Power Four player, and Mike's cutting in and out. Okay, let me make sure we got that figured out. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? I think it's oh yeah, it is kind of like slowly activating. I don't know. Okay, well I'll just keep talking and you guys let me know if it's still messing up. Um, but there are a lot of high school players of that caliber that think, oh, I'll just go to JUCO and hit like 340 with 15 bombs, and I'm like, dude, like it ain't that easy. It's not that easy, and a lot of players are just under the assumption that that's kind of how it is. Um, so it's guys just have to be smart, right? You just have to go to a place where you think you're going to get the coaches are telling you like you're going to get a good chance to play and everything like that. I mean it's the same decision process for a Division 1 school, right? You don't just like pick a school and go. You got to understand the roster makeup, what the coaches are saying, get a feel for it. But I also have a lot of recruiting news just from our team. We had our team meeting today. It ended about an hour ago. And what we're hearing from schools all across the country, and I'll let you guys know that here in the next few minutes, as it pertains to high school players in certain positions and how they're being impacted by the portal, even more so now. So you guys are hearing me fine now, so that's good. Gary Smitty, what's up? Welcome back to the chat, Smitty. Coog says it was cutting out on mine. Yeah, it might have been just some kind of, who knows. We hear you. We hear you, and then it cutting in and out. Zach, let's leave the stream and join back. You leave the chat, leave and join back, and it works fine. Can hear you now. Okay, great. Yeah, maybe it was just something. Maybe your guys' internet is messing up. Hopefully, it's not mine because I would be getting things popping up on the screen saying it's disconnecting. But like what we were back talking to Canes, and obviously, and here's the I'll show you guys the tweet from Kendall Rogers about this right here. So this is Kendall Rogers earlier today saying, "Scoop: Arizona State baseball intends to go all in on the scholarship front in college baseball and is expected to offer 34 full scholarships beginning in 2026. ASU will also will participate in the revenue sharing of for baseball, and we'll do millions in improvements to Phoenix Municipal in the offseason. Big news in Tempe. So not only are they going 34 scholarships, obviously they're going to be getting revenue share, so they'll be able to, give their players NIL money on top of the full ride scholarship. But they're also doing millions to improve their facilities. So Arizona State baseball is trying to get back into the limelight, and they're doing it the right way. They're investing it like the problem is what a lot of head coaches will tell you is you go into an AD's office and they basically say, hey, AD, all these other schools are going to higher scholarships, and my job depends on winning and making it to a regional, making it to a super regional, winning a conference championship. And it's becoming harder and harder if we're at 14 or 15 scholarships and this school's at 34. Like I can't compete in recruiting, generally speaking, right? Your program will have certain advantages over other programs, but when they can put down 100% offer to every guy they're recruiting, they're just going to win more in those recruiting matchups. They're just going to win more. And a lot of the ADs will basically like, yeah, I understand, but we just, we can't do anything. When in reality, a lot of these schools have so much endowment money and so much alumni money uh, that they could do something. They just don't see they see it as a financial investment that they may not see a return on. Whereas ASU's going, no, we want to get back to the limelight. We want to be one of the best programs in the country. We're going for it, right? And certainly, this is going to put a lot more pressure on ASU staff. A certain, once you can start utilizing those funds in recruiting in 26, I'm assuming that these are going to pertain to the 26 recruiting class. So now the 26 is out there that are still available. Like you can say, hey, 100%, here you go. Perfect example is a kid in Georgia. You probably know him, Charlie Delp. I think he's a first baseman only. He still hasn't committed. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second, Zach or Canes. Did you see where Pitt is letting everyone in for free this year? That program must be in bad shape. Are you talking about into the stadium for free? A lot of schools in the ACC do that, Zach, because BC is free. Duke was free until 2 years ago. Yeah, it's definitely those programs like the ones you're mentioning, right? With Pitt, BC, Duke, like a lot of these schools, their facilities and their stadiums are just not up to par with the upper echelon of the ACC. So they're just trying to get guys in and spend money on the concessions and stuff, and try to build revenue that way. I will say, even compared to when I was playing at Georgia Tech, there's way more fans at the games now than when I was playing, and that's partly because the sport of college baseball has grown so much in the last 4 or 5, 6 years with the TV deals and everything like that. And the college baseball, tournament, postseason tournament has just become really big in viewership and everything like that. So, but certainly, yeah, I mean, like Pitt is, your Pitts, your Boston colleges, like what those guys are. The problem with like, and Duke has overcome this in a lot of ways, and that's like I told you earlier. Like you got to give credit to Chris Pollard and Josh Jordan when he was there, who's now at LSU as a recruiting coordinator, because Duke had all the same hurdles, right? Super expensive, really high academic requirements, um, and not great facilities. Duke figured out a formula and a way to get winning players on their team, and now they're one of the best programs in the country year by year. I mean, they're like a perennial now top 15, top 20 team. And Boston College is headed in the right direction with Todd Interdonato. Pitt but it is in that same category. These are three schools that are very high academic, and there's just a lot of hurdles in recruiting that you don't have at other schools. Like in Georgia Tech, for example, just as high academic as all those other schools, but it's a public institution. So it's the tuition and just the amount of money you have to spend to go there is way less than a private school. So Georgia Tech has that high academic requirement, but because the financial burden is much lower, you don't need to worry much. Um, and so let's get into some of the recruiting news, guys. Again, this is this is not going to be super surprising, but I think some of you guys will. Um, Zach says crazy. Never heard of that. Are you talking about the letting guys in for free? Okay, so we're going to get into right now some of the recruiting news that we're hearing across the country, whether it's the Midwest, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, West Coast, Southeast, in the Texarkana area. We're hearing more and more over the last few months, right? It's a consistent message now. One of our guys sent a few high school players and some video and metrics and stuff to a mid-major Division I coach, and the coach said, "Hey, dude, why?" Like jokingly, like, "Hey, why are you still sending me high school players? Why are you still sending me high school players?" Right? And that is it's not a majority, certainly not a majority um, kind of thought process, but there is a large amount of schools that is their thought now. Like, why are you sending me high school players? I just why would I ever recruit a high school player when I can go get a guy in the portal? And so we were talking about this as a team today, and really we're talking about, okay, the positions that are really impacted, and this will come a little bit of a surprise to you guys, but even, and this goes back to the Michael Mullinax thing, and we were talking about this on the meeting, is now more than ever, with the offensive climate the way it is, coaches are saying we really don't care that much that you're an above average defender in the outfield, even in center field. We'll take a better bat and an average defender and put him in center field over having the above average defender with the not as good bat, because they feel like they're going to win more ball games having the best bat in the lineup than they're going to lose by having just an average defender in the outfield. And so obviously the corner positions have had a major impact from the portal, the corner outfield guys, because you don't need as good a defenders there. Those are typically where some of your bigger bats are. But now this is even impacting center field. And for example, like in Michael Mullinax's case, the guys I talked to around the Georgia program, they said that probably was one of the better defenders of the outfielders, had a decent decent fall, but Georgia's strategy is we're gonna hit bombs. Like, we're going to have a physical lineup up and down that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And so we'll take worse defense in the outfield for having the better bat. So guys, this is not just impacting the corner outfield spots anymore. This is impacting a premium defensive position in center field because of how offensive the climate is now. Back when I was playing, there was way more balls in play in the outfield. Right now, if a guy gets it to the outfield, like, and he puts a good swing on it, it's gone. It's a home run, generally speaking. And even miss hits are home runs now. So there's way more balls that are hit to the outfield that are unplayable because they're out of the park. And when I was playing, right, you didn't see that happen a lot. You really needed a guy in center field who could run balls down, because there was just going to be a lot more balls that were hit well that were going to the track or hitting off the wall or right in front of the track. So if you had a guy that could really run balls down, he was a huge value add on your team defensively, because in that climate, you needed it. In this climate, your center fielders are playing, like, think about it like this. When I played center field at Georgia Tech in the dead ball era, I'm playing super shallow. I'm taking away singles, but I was good enough to going back, and I was elite going back on the ball, so I could run balls down deep in the gap and at the wall and at the track. And so now, with how much the ball's flying, center fielders and all your outfielders are playing much deeper, because just like I said, a guy mishits one, it can go out. So you're not taking you don't really have an opportunity to take away those singles that are those shallow line drives that you would in the previous offensive climate. So it doesn't make much sense. And again, different fields, it's going to be different, right? Your really big fields, like at Arizona, for example, you're going to need a guy still that can run around. But a lot of these programs, like at Tennessee, for example, which is everyone knows is just a BAM box, and a lot of these stadiums now are BAM boxes just with the way the ball's flying. But you don't have there's not as much necessity for that elite defensive center fielder anymore because guys are playing deep. So singles are going to be hits. You're not going to have as much ability to take away those singles. And again, if you're playing deep, you don't need a guy who's really elite at going back on the ball because you're playing, maybe 40 feet from the wall. You're playing so deep, you don't need a guy with a lot of range going back. And even if you're an elite defender in center field, if you're playing too deep, there's going to be a lot of base hits, shallow base hits that you just can't get to because you're playing so deep. So now the emphasis for a lot of these programs is as long as he's serviceable out there, as long as he's average, right? And there's a difference between an average center fielder and an average corner outfielder. But as long as he's what is looked at, or as long as they evaluate him as an average defender in center field, if he's got a bat that is, you know, maybe not even significantly, but like definitely better than the other options, you're going to go with the better bat because you feel like now you're getting way more value out of the bat than you do out of the defense. Whereas when I played, it was the exact opposite. If you had a really good bat, it was still really hard to have a good year. Um, but if you had a really good defender, man, in the center field who could play shallow, take away shallow base hits, but also take away those doubles and triples and balls in the gap, um, it was a huge value add. So that's how much this offensive climate is impacting recruiting. And so again, with outfielders, like we're hearing so much from coaches, and we were talking about in the meeting today from multiple guys in different regions of the U.S. Like we're not looking at high school outfielders. Like why would I recruit a high school outfielder? I can go get a corner guy or an average guy in center field who's got proven numbers. We need three of them. Um, and even really what we were, one of our guys brought up, Pat Pinkman, is that like even like he's getting the sense that our Mid Atlantic director, he's getting the sense that even like infield defense guys are like, well, it's not there's just not as much emphasis on elite defenders right now at the college on the at the high college level as far as recruiting, because if you have a really good bat, he's going to bring so much value. And the question, like really what we were talking about is like basically like at a lot of programs right now, the feeling is as long as our guys can make, all the routine plays, we don't need a superstar defender. Like I mean, we don't need a guy taking away hits. We need a guy that makes outs. We don't really need a guy that turns hits into outs. That would be great if we can have a guy with a really good bat and can do that. That's a bonus. But if he's an elite bat or a very good bat and he makes everything that should be an out is an out, he's our guy. We don't need that elite defender. Um, and so you're talking if you're a high school player out there, or you're a parent of a high school player, um, you need to really change your mindset and your outlook on recruiting if you're an outfielder, if you're a corner infielder, even a middle infielder, because please, and don't take this as me saying, well, all they care about is your bat, right? The emphasis is they have to be at least average at defender at their position, typically. So don't take this as, well, I don't need to even work on defense because I'm just, Kyle's telling me all they want is really good bats. You know, make yourself as valuable as possible. The better defender you are, the better hitter you are, the more likely you are to play. That's always going to be true. But this is more me trying to tell you guys that at those positions, high school or college coaches are like, I'm just going to go to the portal. Now we did talk about, and I've told you guys this, like pitching guys are always still going to go after high school pitchers because, like we've talked about, stuff plays. Stuff is very easy to evaluate. It's very easy to see a guy who's like a 92-mile-an-hour fastball right-handed pitcher. And one of the things that Pat Pinkman brought up, which was actually, was very insightful, is that now it's not just about, oh, you throw 92 and he's got you got an okay breaker, you got an okay changeup, like you throw decent strikes. Now more than ever, these coaches are looking for a guy with the fastball velocity they want, and they want a weapon of a pitch, right? So if you got let's say in the SEC, you're throwing 92 as a right-handed pitcher, that's, fairly average fastball in the SEC, right? It's around 91, 92. But if you don't have a weapon of an off-speed pitch, the feeling is Well, you're not going to get swinging. You're not going to get guys to swing and miss, and an average fastball in the SEC is going to get hit. And so if you are a pitcher out there, really be consciously working on developing a weapon of a pitch, whether that's a high spin rate breaker or an elite changeup, etc. Right. And if you have an elite fastball with really good metrics, that can be looked at as a weapon, right? If you have a 92-mile-an-hour fastball, but really good ride, high spin, that's just going to have bats missing underneath all the time. That's a weapon. But it's not just about how hard you throw. If you throw 92, but like your off speed is just okay, they're not really going to look at you as a guy because they're looking for guys with weapons. And even more so, and you guys have heard me say this as well, they're looking for guys that throw strikes. That's, they don't have any time now to deal with a guy, to bring in a guy they think, yeah, he may never throw a lot of strikes. Like that's just a waste of time at this point. That's just a waste of time. No one wants to deal with it. And so, guys, if you're a high school player or a parent of a high school player, understand that recruiting has become harder than ever for high school players, generally speaking, right? You're just under way more of a microscope. They're going to nitpick way more than they used to because they know we can go to the portal and get a proven guy and it's not going to be a big deal. Zach, what do coaches think about spin rate for a pitcher? How much do they value it? Oh, they definitely value it, right, Zach? And again, uh, you may have a really high spin rate fastball or high spin rate breaking ball. That's a metric that typically indicates, like, on a four seam, it's going to ride. You're going to miss bats are going to be missing underneath. You're going to generate a lot of whiff rate. And with a breaking ball, it's going to be a weapon, a swing and miss weapon that you can use for a strikeout pitch, or but you can also command to get yourself back in the count. But remember, no one is getting offered based on their metrics. If they see that, they may want to go see the guy. But if every time you throw the pitch against high school competition, it's getting lit up, then it may not be as elite a pitch as the metrics indicate. So it's important to make that distinction, that metrics typically indicate a certain thing, but it does not mean they always indicate a certain thing. And I've told you that from my own experience as a player, facing guys. Oh, this guy's got a 3,200 RPM slider, and then you go up there and you're like, it looks like an average slider. It doesn't look anything crazy. And then you face a guy with a 3,200-mile-an-hour breaking ball, and it looks like unhittable, right? There can be that big of a difference, and to some other hitters it may look unhittable versus a lefty hitter may see it a lot better, a righty hitter may not see it well at all. So it's definitely one of those premium metrics that coaches are looking at, but no one's getting offered uh, based on their spin rate, right? They need to see how it plays in game. I've told you guys, if you're a pitcher out there, like, the hitters are going to tell you how good your stuff is. Hitters will always be the objective uh, thing that shows you how good your stuff is. Like, metrics may say one thing, but if every time you go out there you're getting lit up, it, your pitches aren't as elite as the metrics say. Now, why is that? I can't tell. I can't tell you, right? Because everybody's an individual. Um, Everybody moves differently, but metrics, generally speaking, are a good indication of the potentiality for an elite pitch. You think people get too tied up in metrics? 100%. And what I mean by that is, like, you hear a lot of high school hitters talk about their exit velocity. And man, I was at that prep baseball showcase and I hit it 105. Um, okay, yeah, but in the game, you're swinging and missing all the time. Like, who cares about that? Your exit velocity is really good. You're not a hitter. You're not dominating your competition in high school, right? And if you're going to be a power four player, you are, like, this has always been the case, but now it's even more pronounced. Like, you should be just head and shoulders above everyone around you, talent wise, performance wise, right? And if you're a high school hitter and you're hitting, like, and you're in a normal high school conference and you're hitting like 320, like, everyone's different, and some conferences are a lot better than others. But typically, I'm looking at those numbers and I'm thinking, man, you only hit 320 in high school. Do you think you're going to hit the same in college when the guys are throwing on average probably 6 or 7 mile an hour harder on average, with way better off speed, better command, everything like that? Like that's what college coaches are looking at. Is like, if it's a big red flag for me if a high school hitter, if I'm recruiting from a Power Four school and a high school hitter hit like 310, like you're rolling. And I'll tell you this, like the rule of thumb under the BESR bats. So like before 2010 and earlier, right when everyone was using the BESR bats, and they eventually got banned. The rule of thumb from professional scouts was whatever you hit in college, you're going to hit 100 points lower in pro ball. 100 points lower. So if you're a 350, 360 hitter with the BESR bats, you're going to hit, on average, you're probably going to be a 260 hitter, 270 hitter maybe, right? That, there's some give and take there. But that was like the rule of thumb. So a guy who hit like 410 with the BESR bats, that guy was looked at as a legit, plus hitting tool, because the idea was, man, if 100 points down, he's still over 300. Um, Now when the BB core bats came in when I was playing, that equalized a lot more, because those bats, and I'm not kidding when I say this, they were more dead with those bats and the high seam balls that we played with than hitting with a wood bat and a professional ball when I got to pro ball. Because my first BP, I'm like, man, this ball's jumping off my bat way more than the metal bat did, in college. So like a guy who hit like me my junior year when I hit 360, it was looked at as like, this guy's probably way more closer to a 300 hitter with these bats. In my career, I hit 290 as a 290 in my career, and I had multiple years hitting over 300. So, and if you take away really my last season, where I was basically my last season and a half, where I was just kind of on and off the disabled list and not really getting consistent at bats because of that, I'm like a 296, almost 300 hitter career lifetime. So it became a lot easier for professional scouts in that era to really have an idea of what kind of hitter a guy was and what kind of power he was going to hit for, because it was way closer to a wood bat with a professional baseball than the BESR bats with how they were flying. And now the same thing is true again. So in this era, a professional scout is looking at a lot of these guys, and again, it's that this is not a all-encompassing rule. Some guys will be outliers. Some guys will hit 330 in college, and they'll be like a 320 hitter in pro ball. Like that's very rare now. It's probably maybe not 320, maybe like 300, 305. But generally speaking, the rule of thumb among scouts that I've talked to with how much the ball is flying in college baseball now, you're they're looking, it's way closer to the 100 point rule again, where, all right, you hit 380, you're probably a 280, 290 hitter in pro ball. Like Chris Taylor, for example, from Virginia, has been in the big leagues a long time now. He was like a 285. When he got drafted, I think he hit like 285 or 290 in college that year at Virginia. And then in pro ball in the minor leagues, he was like a 310 hitter, right? That's how crazy that offensive environment was. Kyle Farmer, who I played against at UGA and worked out with in the offseason a bunch, and was even teammates in big league camp with the Reds in 2019. It was kind of the same thing. He was kind of like he was a really good athlete. He was like a 285, 290 hitter in college, and in pro ball, he just was like a 315 hitter, right? That's how tough it was to hit in that environment from 2011 to like 2015. It was crazy. And it's just totally different now. This environment in college baseball is way closer and maybe even worse than it was under BESR. My freshman year of high school, we had to use the BB Core bats, going from travel ball bats to those humbled you big time. Oh, yeah. I mean, my first time picking up a BB Core was my freshman fall at Georgia Tech. So, I was never a power guy, but in high school, I'd hit, I think at 4 or 5 out, 4 or 5 home runs in 30 games. So not like a massive power guy by any stretch of the imagination. But then in my freshman year, I hit one. Um, I mean, and the thing is, I was always like a low line drive kind of ground ball hitter because I was an elite runner. I was like a 75, 80 grade runner. And so that was my game. So I had kind of tailored to that game. And so it was really good for me because if I had been trying to, and again, this is what I see with a lot of high school hitters. So at these, when I work, the high school team I work with, I see guys that, that their exit velocity peaks are like 85 or something. And they're trying to drop and drive. Like they're trying to hit like Aaron Judge. And I'm like, dude, your best bolt is a fly out to left field. Like, what are you doing? You need to hit low line drives and ground balls. Like you're gonna have a way better chance to be successful in high school if you're doing that. And that's the issue with everyone training to hit home runs. Like some guys are just not going to be able to do it, especially at the high school level, right? And ground balls are way more hits in high school. They're way more hits in college. And pro ball, the defenses get so good that ground balls typically are outs. But in high school and in college, man, you can make a really good living now hitting a lot of ground balls because the defenses are just not as good. Appropriate age to use wood bat for training, etc. I mean, not until probably your junior year of high school. I mean, that like I'll give you an example. I was one of the best hitters in college baseball. 2 of the years, hits wise, batting average, every like hits per game, stuff like that. And every scout told me in high school, like you're just not physical enough to hold to be using a wood bat right now, which is fine. You need to go to college and get stronger. But the vast majority of kids are just not good. And you watch where these kids are playing in the outfield, you're just like, why are we even doing this? Why are they even using a wood bat? Because these kids aren't strong enough to swing a metal bat, let alone swing a wood bat. And when they're best, they'll crush a ball and it goes like 40 feet to the outfield. It's just like, what are we doing? So it doesn't make there's like maybe senior year high school, junior high school. With the roster cuts, will there be more looks at two-way players? 100%, Tyson. Welcome to the chat. 100%. And the caveat is this: they need to be, it's not one of those things where you're like, all right, we really love him as a hitter, but like, he pitches, but like, he's on our level. They need to see him as both a guy who could pitch there and play a position, and that if they recognize both sides being that good, way more valuable with the shortened roster sizes. So, and even Butch Thompson even told me that before ABCA when we were in the airport, he's like, man, if you got a couple two-way guys that are legit pitchers, but they're legit offensive guys as well, that's big value because now you got two extra pitchers that don't really count as pitchers on your roster. So there's 100% more value if you are a legit two-way guy. Whereas under the old rules, you would bring in a two-way guy, but generally speaking, just how it typically operates. I mean, most programs, like Georgia Tech, for example, has a history of having like guys that are successful two-way guys, but a lot of programs will basically tell the kid, yeah, we see you could potentially do both, and they let him basically take BP in the fall and are just like, yeah, he's gonna be a pitcher, he's gonna pitch. Um, so it just depends on the program and everything like that. But some programs, especially now, are going to make that adjustment because having a couple extra arms in a regional or in a conference tournament where you're going 5 games deep, any extra arms you can get are great as long as they're guys that can compete in the zone and you feel like you can trust. So that's the key. I mean, it's not like, oh, he pitches in high school too. He's a two-way guy. It's like, no, they need to see you as a guy that is really, really good at both. And then all of a sudden your value compared to what your value was before is definitely higher. When reaching out to coaches, should we add hitting footage as well? Yes, 100%. Now the like for our clients, for example, Tyson, like what we do is we screen all the videos when they send it to us. So like we reach out for them to schools, send video, etc. But what a lot of parents get wrong is they don't really have, and it makes sense, right? If you're not a baseball guy and you haven't spent a long time around, high level baseball, it makes sense why you wouldn't be able to identify it. But a lot of parents will send a video, like for example, a guy hits, it'll say like a double in travel ball or something like that. And then you watch the video and he gets kind of blown up and like the outfielder falls over and he ends up getting a double. Well, a college coach is just watching that and thinking that's a fly out, right? And what I try to tell parents is that the hitting video you send needs to make him look really good. And like for our clients, we take care of that because we're looking at the video and being like, okay, that one, we're not going to send that, but that one's good. Um, but when a coach is watching your son play, this is key. If you don't hear anything else I say, this is key. He's not looking at exactly at what the player's done. Let's say he goes 2 for 3 with 2 doubles. What he's looking at is, are those 2 hits actually still doubles at my level? So in the ACC, with better outfielders, stuff like that, is that still a double or is a guy catching that? And so a kid, and this is where a lot of parents, they get confused because they're like, man, he did so well in front of that coach, and then they're not doing anything, and it's like, well, you think he did well, but he watched the same game and realized that a couple of those hits are not hits in the ACC. So when he watched the game, he's like, yeah, I mean, that's an offer, right? Um, so you have to put yourself in the coach's mindset of he's not judging you based on exactly what you do against high school competition. He's taking what you did and then applying it in his mind to an ACC caliber defense and then making the decision of, okay, does that play at our level or is this not going to play at our level? So again, some of these fields that guys play on are 345 to center field, 350, and you send a video to a coach, and the ball gets out by 5 feet in center field, and he sees that big 350 sign in center field. All he's thinking is that's a fly ball, that's a fly out, like that's a 355, 360 fly out. That's 30 to 40 feet in front of the wall, and probably 25 feet to 35 feet in front of the track. So it's not just that, oh, it's a good hit. It's like, dude, it's not even close to being a hit at our level. So again, and that same applies to other parts of the field. It's like you played a high school field, it's 315 down the line, and you hit one barely out of the fence. A coach isn't saying, oh, that's a home run. He's saying that might be a fly out at our level. So you have to be really precise with the video you send, because again, first impressions last. And if you send the wrong video and a coach is like, well, this isn't a hit at our level, he's gonna be like, yeah, I don't know about this guy, right? So that first impression is key, and you want to make sure that the video you're sending to coaches are the best possible video that makes your son look as good as possible. Right, we're going to check out some of this house settlement stuff and how that stuff is developing. Obviously, now we know the date. It's going to be in April when potentially a final decision comes down on it. Again, I mean, man, talk about taking it down to the wire. Can you imagine as a college coach, this house settlement decision gets made on April, and they're like, "Oh, just kidding, we're not going to approve it." And then all these kids that were cut and everything like that, it's like it becomes a monster. But let's look through some of this stuff, guys. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. And this is key right here. This is big time. Please pay attention to this. Let me zoom in for you guys. All right. As noted here, college teams are looking to extend their contracts with players they want to retain before the season ends and before the transfer portal opens. Ding, ding, ding. We've been talking about this, right, guys? Makes a ton of sense. Also, one free agency portal period is probably the way to go. Should be agreed to by players. Okay, so let's look into this. Shane Beamer wanted to avoid the worst in the winter transfer portal window. The South Carolina head coach knew quarterback Lenora Sellers and edge Dylan Stewart would be heavily pursued to enter the transfer portal when December came following their standout season. Beamer told his staff and NIL collective to start drafting new contracts during the season when Sellers and Stewart were becoming household college football names. Sellers was named the SEC Freshman of the Year by coaches this fall, while Stewart was a true freshman All-American and established himself as a top pass rusher in the nation. They didn't need to go anywhere else to continue to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish here, Shane Beamer told On3 on Wednesday morning. They realized that everything we said in the recruiting process we were going to do and be. That's who we are. So it was a pretty simple process. We knew early in the season that the key for us was going to be to retain our roster, so we got to work on the particulars of that. Beamer's program has used the portal to bring in talent, highlighted by the addition of edge Kyle Kennard last season, who had 11.5 sacks. But holding on to top talent has never been more difficult in college football, and the same is true in baseball. I'm certainly in favor of shortening the portal windows, he said. I'm not anti-portal. We've benefited from the portal. But people don't need two different portal windows that cover around 6 weeks to decide that they want to transfer from somewhere. You either want to be a part of that program or you don't. I'm certainly in favor of shortening the window, certainly in favor of only having one portal window. There's good and bad with every portal window, but it seemed pretty unanimous that the coaches were in favor of one window in January. We would all certainly be in agreement that as long as it's a shorter window than what it is, we could all get on board with that. So again, you're seeing right now the push for, hey, let's get rid of one of these transfer portal windows. Like we cannot. And again, this is why we talked about the whole GM thing yesterday. It's just way too much for these coaches that they have to, they basically have to survive and weather two portal windows. One before the season in the summer and then one after the season in the winter, after the season for most schools, except those in the national championship and, a few bowls. But this makes a lot of sense. And again, coaches want to be able to extend contracts with players they want to retain. So if you have a binding contract, a kid, like let's say for baseball, for example, you have a freshman who all of a sudden is looking like he's going to be a all ACC type player or freshman All American type player. Like you don't want to just like hope and pray that this guy doesn't leave in the transfer portal. You want to have some kind of form of action you can take, like offering a guy a contract midseason for the next year, an NIL contract, whatever. So I think this makes the most sense. I think I can't see coaches will definitely support that. The question is, will the NCAA allow it? And, it's like, does the NCAA even have the authority to deny it? Who knows? But I do think we will see this coming. And like I've told you guys in the past, these multi-year contracts, I had heard even last summer from a bunch of coaches that that's what they want to see, so that they have the ability to lock these guys down for a few years, or at least have the option to offer another contract in the middle of the season before the transfer window opens and put the player to a decision. That way, they can get these guys locked up and not to worry about the transfer portal. So here we go. The Power Four will be running its own enforcement and investigative entity to police new rules coming out of the House settlement, including the salary cap and restrictions on deals with collectives. This mirrors pro leagues now that college sports are fully professional as well. Golly, man, I can't get this cold out of me. A committee of Power Conference administrators took significant steps this week toward the creation of a new entity that will govern the evolving professionalized aspects of college sports, a milestone moment in the industry. During a 2-day summit in the nation's capital, a transition team charged with operationalizing concepts of the House settlement inched closer to establishing a new structure to oversee manage and enforce the settlement-related athlete compensation system for all of NCAA Division I. The newly created LLC, overseen by a CEO or executive director, is centered around a new enforcement arm to police violators of the industry's new salary cap and is expected to feature revenue-sharing policies and a corresponding penalty structure for violators. Who are the new enforcers? This new, nameless entity, running adjacent and intertwined with the NCAA, serves as a sea change in how college athletics is policed, replacing a much maligned NCAA-controlled process of lengthy investigations, controversial enforcement decisions, and what some believe to be unnecessary committee hearings. The NCAA's enforcement unit for now will continue to police matters around eligibility and academics. The transition team is expected to continue its work over the coming weeks. A final approval hearing for the settlement is scheduled for April 7th. However, even if the settlement is rejected, college leaders are prepared to move forward with compensating athletes under this new model. The transition team gathered in Washington, D.C. on Sunday and Monday to further explore details around this newly created framework, which entails a three-prong approach of enforcement: a cap management system, an NIL clearinghouse, and an investigative and infractions unit, much of which Yahoo Sports has previously reported. What will they police? Perhaps most notably among the transition team's decisions, the group began to finalize new policies, penalties related to the revenue sharing system, and the new entity's leadership team. Multiple penalties are under discussion for those found to be circumventing or exceeding the new cap or any other rule violation, i.e., tampering, including school fines, revenue share pool reductions, and coach administrator suspensions. So a lot of stuff's coming out right now, right? All right, from Mitt Winter. And this is about the Georgia bill that we're going to get into. The state a college athlete chooses to play in can make a big difference in how much of his or her paycheck gets taken home. I won't be surprised to see more state bills this year, like the Georgia one, proposing to exempt college athlete NIL compensation from state income tax. So we talked about this the other day, guys. It is NIL money is income, so you do have to pay taxes. But not if your state proposes a bill that makes college athletes exempt from income tax on NIL earnings. How about that? Man, must be nice. Must be nice. So we had this discussion a few days ago, and then bam, this bill pops up, right? And right now it's only for the state of Georgia. Um, when athletes flee USC, Minnesota, or Oregon, high taxes can play a factor. I present the NIL state income tax burden chart, SEC Big Ten edition. So basically, look at this. So obviously no state income tax in Florida, Tennessee, Texas, Washington. But if you look at these, I can't even see, this is even too small for me. Let's see. I can't even make it. I can't even make it any bigger. But essentially, let's see, state burden tax 100K. So, your highest income taxes are going to be like in Oregon, New Jersey, Minnesota, um, Wisconsin, South Carolina's up there. But so again, like if you're a college athlete and you're trying to get as much NIL money as possible and keep it as much as you can, hey, you're going to go play for University of Georgia if this bill goes through because your NIL earnings are not going to be state income tax. You're not going to have to pay state income tax on NIL earnings. Now, again, guys, this is not federal income tax. This is state. So unless there's and again, in the current administration, they're talking about ending the income tax. So who knows? But right now, those NIL payments are still going to be, you're still going to have to pay taxes, federal income taxes on those NIL payments. But this ability to not have to pay state income tax could be a deciding factor in where guys end up going to play. Okay. Missouri State's AD explained what schools will be paying athletes for post-house to play sports. If we're not going to call it what it is, we're not being honest. People need to go buy rosters, and I know a lot of people may cringe at that, Ranzel said. If we're not going to call it what it is, we're not being honest. The other part of this is that it's not going to be equal. We've got to make sure that we prioritize things. We're going into this expecting some change, and we're going to try to maneuver the best we can. In Oregon, Uncle Phil will just throw more money on gross NIL to cover taxes as well. Yeah, that's probably true. Right, but at least this is an AD that's saying, what is actually going on, right? He's actually saying, we're paying these guys to play. This is a professional sports. NCAA now is technically professional sports. So let's not get it twisted. This is, we're paying guys to play, which is fine. People don't want to say it, but that's what it is now. And so I do think we could, again, listen, this will be this will be a good thing if schools are allowed to lock up guys early, meaning contracts, in season before they can hit the portal. It is going to make it to where less people are going in the portal. Not by a large amount, right? Because the amount of players that you're willing to offer NIL to is definitely a minority of portal guys, right? There's not the majority of portal guys are not getting any NIL money. Um, and so again, you're going to have uh, it is going to make a dent in the recruiting of high school players in a sense that if you're not losing as many guys as you usually do to the portal, then that means there's going to be a little bit more space for high school players, but it's not going to be a major impact. Kook sauce. There was talk that Texas A&M had 4.5 million for the roster. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you 2 years ago, um, from talking to coaches during the summer that at that point, word around the street was that Clemson was at like 1.3 or 1.5 million for the roster, um, and certainly A&M is one of the schools with the most NIL money in the country. So I wouldn't be surprised by that number. I can't confirm it. I may be able to confirm it in the next couple of weeks, but that wouldn't surprise me, Coog, because that when you're talking LSU, when you're talking A&M, et cetera. I mean, it's really not even a budget. It's like, hey, boosters, NIL collectives, we need this much money. Uh, you know, we need this. We need a shortstop, and it's probably going to be like we're probably going to have to give them like 200,000 or 250,000. Okay, right. That's what I was told. That's what I was told 2 years ago about LSU. It was like there is no budget, there is no limit. Like just tell us what you need. So again, it's like it is good that you're seeing. I do think you're going to see more schools pushing the envelope with scholarship money. But the question is going to become, okay, well, are they going to be able to push NIL money? And the revenue share model that is going to be introduced will give teams, we're going to have to wait and see exactly how much, but it's going to give teams a little bit of money to, pay some of their players. It's just a question of how much is it going to be. Um, you know, so, baseball being probably definitely behind football, men's basketball, women's basketball, um, and again, like some schools like LSU, they actually make a lot of money on the baseball team. So like that's different. They may get their LSU's roster may get more money than another Division One school that doesn't really make money for the school. So it's going to be based on that, and it's going to have to be, they're saying Title IX is going to have to be taken into account. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how much like a baseball team is going to get, generally speaking. Um, until then, but again, Coog, I'm not surprised by that number at all. That doesn't surprise me at all. And that means that technically what that means is that every player on the roster could get at least 100,000, right? And then some. So that's crazy, right? That's crazy. I can't imagine being a college student and getting paid 100 grand to play college baseball, right? That's maybe I should file suit for maybe I should file suit for uh, trying to get into this class action lawsuit, even though I'm outside the time frame. But I mean, we're gonna have this is gonna be I do think now we're gonna have a continual dump uh, of information coming out because this is where because of the objections and everything like that, we're probably going to see some changes to the settlement based off of some objections. So over these next couple months until April, and the final decision is made, we're going to have a steady stream of new information coming out, slight changes being made. I don't foresee any major changes happening based on what I'm reading, based on what I'm hearing. But we're going to have a steady stream of information coming because again, there's going to be some modifications made to the House settlement, and how it pertains to roster and everything like that. There are objections to the roster size changes. We'll have to see if there's any changes to that. Um, but I think all indications are that it will be approved, even if there are some slight modifications to it. But we're gonna have to just wait and see. We're gonna have to wait and see uh, on that in particular. All right, let's see if we got anything else here. We talked about the ACC format change. If you guys haven't seen that, we talked about it yesterday. Much better format for the ACC tournament. Very happy with it. My one my one negative is I don't really like that every the ACC tournament now, every single team gets into it. So there's no regular season requirement in a win-loss category in conference that you need to be. So technically you could go 0 and 30 in the SEC and you're going to be in the tournament. So I don't like, and this is a minor gripe, right? Because I do think the overall format change is light years better than the old pool play format, which was terrible, terrible to watch, not fun to watch. Um, didn't really make any sense. I don't know why they decided to do that. The SEC tournament is way better now. Now the ACC tournament is much more is almost exactly the same as the SEC tournament with a few differences. Not every team in the SEC will make the SEC tournament, and I do like that. So I do still think the SEC tournament is better, but the ACC is doing that to get more fans to the championship, to the ACC championships. So every team makes it. So every fan base is going to have some representation there typically. So it'll bring in more money. There will be more games played. So they're going to make more money concessions wise and TV time and everything like that. So, but like overall, it's just way better. It's going to be really exciting to watch. It is single elimination because every team makes it. I mean, you couldn't have like double elimination tournament. You would have to play way too many games. And I do think like, your top four seeds get a double round bye, so they don't even play until the third round on Thursday and Friday. And your fourth or your fifth through eighth seed get a first round bye, so they don't play until Wednesday. And your 9 through 16 seeds have to run the gauntlet. They play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday. So they even have a built-in off day if you make it to the third round where your team will get a day off to recover. So I just think the overall structure is way better. Besides the every team getting in, I think it's a really good change and definitely needed change because I just think in single elimination, right? The games are very exciting because I mean every pitch is vitally important. You have to win the game, so it's gonna be fun to watch. Can't wait to cover that and have we'll talk about it and everything, guys. Remember, we're gonna be doing um, some of these weekend series. We'll be doing watch parties for games. I cannot stream them live, but I can have the stream up, watching the game on another monitor, and we can talk through the game, talk through what we're seeing, talk through, coaching decisions, talk through decisions made by players, bad and good. And it'll just be, we can just hang out and watch baseball and have a good time. So excited to get that going here soon. But that's pretty much going to be it for today. We're going to have more info dropping. Going to have a video coming out tonight about it's practice part two. My video yesterday, you guys I think really liked it, and this is just a little bit more in depth into practice and what I see from coaching high schoolers and working with high school teams these last couple weeks, and from what I've seen and are they giving enough effort and are they working hard enough to achieve their dreams, and ways to change your mindset for that. So look for that coming out later tonight. We're going to have more content coming out. I know Pat Pinkman's going to have a video coming soon about pitching and about, guys in high school that why velocity goes up and down and stuff like that. Are you on every day at noon central? Typically Cougs, it's like, like right now it's either like I'm either on, I'd say my average time is probably around 12 noon, but sometimes a little bit earlier, sometimes a little bit later. Just depends on, well, I won't be any later than that, but I may be earlier than that some days just based on, I got like a 1 year old who's, he's amazing, but the only thing he's not very good at is sleeping. So nap schedule, stuff like that, I sometimes have to move it around. But yeah, every day of the week, not on the weekend, but every day of the week around that time. And then again, when the season starts, we'll be covering games and stuff. So we'll be doing like later in the day or later at night type stuff, covering games. So that'll be fun and looking forward to it. And I hope you guys will join me for some of those. Buck, damn it, I missed it. I missed today. Well, it'll be It's recorded, so you can go back and watch it, Buck. Yeah, but we missed you in here today, Buck. Really good conversation on some of these changes and the stuff. Talked about a lot of stuff in our. We had our team meeting today, and we talked about what we're hearing from coaches as far as recruiting. So we talked about that. So go back and watch it because uh, if you're a high school outfielder or a high school, even a high school center fielder or a high school corner infielder guy, like start changing your mindset on where you want to go to play because more and more we're hearing coaches saying, "Why would I recruit a high school outfielder? Why would I recruit a high school player? Why are you sending me high school players?" Jokingly, one of our guys sent a couple high school players with video and everything to a coach he knows really well, and he kind of jokingly sent back like, "Why are you sending me high school players?" Like jokingly, but like seriously at the same time, it's like I'm not recruiting many like any high school players. So I mean, that's the reality, guys. So as a high school players or parents of high school players, you have to make an adjustment. This is reality. It's not like you can't just be like, well, I'm going to be the outlier that gets to the school. Well, you may pass over some opportunities at other schools, and then when you don't get to the place you thought you're going to get to, now you're in limbo. So don't be that. Don't be that player. Don't be that parent. The most important thing is that a guy, again, remember these JUCO rules, guys, probably going to get moved forward. Probably going to get past that. JUCO eligibility does not count against Division One eligibility, and then the path, right? We're going JUCO. Maybe D2 gets the same treatment. Who knows? Maybe D3 as well. We just have to wait and see. But that's a conversation for another day. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow around the same time.